DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-ranked sportsbook. Speaking of America, our top athletes are over in Tokyo competing for gold, and DraftKings has a medal-worthy offer just for my listeners. Listen to this great offer. Place any pre-event wager of $1 to be eligible to cash in on $100 in free credits if America wins any medal this year. That's 101 odds on an American athlete to stand on the podium and receive gold, silver, or bronze this week. 100 to 1 odds on an offer like this doesn't come around often, so sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook now to get in on all of the great action. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It's easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors like myself, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN to sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits if America wins one medal. That's it, just one medal. That's code THPN to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only and only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older in New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only as well. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or if you're in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Shoots it, deflected, right in. Peter Angelo save, rebound. Stastny stopped by Peter Angelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Peter Angelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Tendy Talk, presented by the BLPA and THPN podcast networks. This week I chat with PT Haider, a goalie who played his college hockey for St. Olaf in the MIAC and used to work summer hockey camps with me down at St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota. It was fun sharing some hockey camp stories with PT and hearing a little bit about what he's up to these days as a deputy police chief in Northfield, Minnesota. So without further ado, let's get to the conversation with PT. Hey, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. This will be fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd say it's good to see your face again, but I'd be lying.
Yeah, I get that. It's the same. Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks for pinch hitting. I had a few interviews lined up this week, but scheduling issues fell through, and I went, you know what? I bet you PT's pretty nimble and would be up for it.
No, that works. Absolutely.
Yeah. So how's life been treating you these days?
Good. Life is different than when we left off between you and I. Let's put it that way. 2 kids, married, 2 kids, 2 kids with, through marriage. I did a career change out of coaching. I miss coaching so much. Went into law enforcement, and I've been in that since 2006, which is scary. I mean, I'm thinking about, that's almost 15 years now I've been in law enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I forget.
I got hired by the Northfield Police Department. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I forget, what was your major in? It wasn't in law enforcement, was it?
It was education and sports science from St. Olaf. Yeah,
that's right.
And I taught and coached, and I was a boys' head hockey coach in a couple towns for high school. And then, my father's a police officer, my brother's a police officer, and I did went on a couple ride-alongs, and I was sick of living. I was like, God, kind of fun. And then somehow beyond fate, I actually hired back in Northfield, Minnesota, which is crazy. I went to college here, ended up and now I work my way to the ranks, and I'm now the deputy chief of police there. So it's crazy how life works out. Let me tell you.
That's great. Northfield's lucky to have you. That's for sure.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
But, my dad always said about cops, you're only cops for one reason.
What's that?
You couldn't pass the fire exam.
I always say, and I always say, retort to that is two things. The cops are there about 15 minutes before even a firefighter shows up on a fire. We're already saving people out of houses, and all they do is save basements. That's all they save. Yeah. Everything else burns.
Oh, we joke with my dad that we can drive through the city and be like, that parking lot, they created that one, they created that one.
That's exactly it, dude. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
God bless them. They, in our town, like for Northfield, they do more than, they're doing medical calls. They're doing stuff that it's not just firefighting. Half their job is firefighting. The rest of it's helping us out with medicals and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny because my dad, like all cops and firemen, they always pick on each other, joke back and forth. And unless you're in New York where they like to fight each other in charity hockey games, they get along, and there's a great mutual respect there. In fact,
there is, even though we talk a lot of trash, it's all in good humor.
Yeah, I've likened it to brothers. You're gonna pick on each other, but if somebody turns around and starts picking on you, you both come at them. Speaking of firemen, Colin Emmons, he's a fireman these days in my neck of the woods. That's how I got back into the beer leagues.
I did not know that. Seriously?
Yeah. So he's the assistant fire chief up here in Hugo. He showed up. I went at National Night Out after I moved into my house here, and Rig shows up and he hops off, and we look at each other like, well, what are you doing here? I live here. What are you doing here? I work on, well, clearly you're on the fire department. He was like a mile and a half from me.
That's crazy how life works. And I think about now you in Hugo. I grew up in Lino.
Yeah.
And my parents lived in Hugo for a bit, and it's great up there. That's a great area. It's just funny how there's always so many points of how life works out. It's degrees of separation that isn't that far from life. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Hugo is great. Hugo is great. I like that area a lot.
One of these days when you're visiting the parents and up this way, we'll have to grab a beer.
No, I would absolutely do that. I'd entertain that for sure. You've always been nice and fun to talk to. Yeah, absolutely.
Or if it's wintertime when we got the backyard rink, we can just have a beer out there and skate.
And I can have my girl come and skate, because that's all she wants to do is being a hockey dad. It's a lot of, I can't even imagine now what my parents went through with both my brother and I playing a year apart. For me, it's such a time constraint, and with the job and trying to make things work, it's so much work. As I don't have to talk to you, you get it. It's so much work.
Yeah. Well, my boy only plays baseball, and that's not nearly the time commitment that hockey is. In fact, it's that time commitment is why he didn't want to play.
Yeah.
It was too much for him.
Yeah, kids are different because you have to be committed, because Olivia is September through March. Yep. Literally, it's pretty much whole school year. She's got hockey, and she's a U10.
Yeah. Well, for us, when we were in college, the hockey season ended, and I was already looking forward to hockey camp so I could be on the ice for like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Doing something different. God, St. Mary's hockey camp, so much fun.
As soon as those kids would go to sleep, we'd be out on the ice for 3-4 hours at a time.
So many memories. Seriously, it was unreal how much I look back and how much I like to play. And even and think about in our world, in the goaltender world, of just getting peppered all day, not really having the most fun, because the fun part was scoring goals and screwing off. It was just no defense. It was just skill development and reaction. It was so much. I learned so much. It was so much fun. And just the camaraderie of playing, it was so much fun. Yeah. I miss those days.
I think I've talked to Emmons about this. As hockey players, what we miss most is the locker room stuff and all of that. Yeah, we miss the competition, but we don't remember games. We remember the antics in the locker rooms, the antics in practice. And when I think back to my time at St. Mary's, it's those summer hockey camps that are fondest, Those
without a doubt. I made some of my closest friends actually that had nothing to do with hockey, that were outside. They met them during hockey, but outside the rink, they become so much more in my life than just that.
Absolutely. So before we get down the hockey camp road, how did you get started in the game of hockey? You mentioned a brother. Was it just following in his footsteps, or what got you?
No, my brother was a year younger. My dad, we grew up in Lino Lake, so ended up going to the Centennial School District. I ended up, my dad was a wrestler, couldn't even skate, still can't skate to this day. He just loved hockey, so he put me in it in mites, and then my brother followed the year after, and we literally just became a hockey family. I remember my first year of squirts, I was like, I want to be a goalie. And my brother was like, I don't want to be a goalie. I want to be a defenseman. So it literally started. I look back to literally my dad starting me. He didn't know what he was doing, literally putting me on an outdoor rink. Because think about it. I know people laughed on your podcast. Outdoor rinks were a thing. That's what you did.
Yeah.
You went to the outdoor rink and you skated. That's what you did. I would get home from school in the winter. I'd get home all Saturday, Sunday. I'd walk literally a mile to Sunrise Park. And that's what I do all day long. I pick up shinny hockey games. That's all I did. Doesn't matter how cold it was, how ice was crappy and slushy, 30 degrees, literally 0 degrees. That's what we did all day long. And God, I fell in love with it. And then I got into being a goalie and fell in love with that. And then all of a sudden, I guess I started getting okay. And then all-star teams, Minnesota Selects, Team Minnesota, this stuff started happening. And I was like, oh, like this became a thing. I was fortunate to play in the Centennial Hockey Association, which now has become one of the, the stronger programs in the state of Minnesota for high school hockey programs and youth hockey associations. It's a complete juggernaut now. I mean, the number of kids that are going through there now are ridiculous compared to it even when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, you were there in their infancy, really, and kind of laying the groundwork.
I was part. Yeah, we were part of the group that laid that groundwork. A couple years before, started to get decent. I remember it would have been my freshman year playing high school when I was not playing the starting goaltender for the high school team, but there was the senior there, and they beat Elk River and the Thompson twins and Trigg Sarsland. That whole group they beat him was the biggest deal in the world from Elk River at that time because they had never beaten Elk River. And then when we were there, we were shifting from my high school time. Through bands, we were shifting from Class A to Class AA because we were now moving into the big schools finally when I was in high school.
Yeah, that area just blew up population-wise.
It's like Maple Grove. It's unreal how Maple Grove blew up. That whole area blew up. Where now we weren't playing Tino Grace in section finals, semifinals in Class A hockey. We were playing the Blaines and the Coon Rapids and the teams that had just larger Anokas who were decent then had just larger schools than us. So yeah, you're bringing me down memory lane. Go ahead. It's awesome.
So what made you, as a Scorpio, like, I want to be a goalie? What was it? Was it just, you got your turn in mites to be the goalie and you loved it, or?
I think it was, I played mites twice in 2 games and I was like, oh, I didn't give up any goals. I thought I was good, but I was like, just nobody really scored. Nobody really scored.
Yeah.
Or I probably got scored on, but I thought I didn't let any in, one of those deals.
Yeah.
But I got to my biggest thing was I like
memory. You forget all the goals.
You do. Right. You got to have a short memory. I loved all the equipment.
Yeah.
I like the pads. I'm like, I can get cool gloves. And I was like, I just want to be a goalie. That's all I wanted to do. So my dad's like, are you sure? Because once we start doing this, we're going to do it. I said, sure. And then I became a goalie in sports right away. Made the A team like my first year because it was me and they only had like 3 goalies total. And I made the A and I think the other 2 played the B, I think is what it was. And then my dad's like, he became the goalie equipment guy, full association. So I just enjoyed doing it. I guess I enjoyed the competition. I enjoyed at that age. It was just, I like people shooting pucks at me and I like the equipment. It was just different. I enjoyed that more than scoring goals.
I'm with you. I like it so much better. I'll skate out. Excuse me for shinny, but I know so many goalies that once their competitive days were done, they hung up the pads and they just want to play forward. I'm like, what fun is that? I don't get it. So you go through high school. What ultimately brought you to St. Olaf then?
Well, my senior year in high school, I played for the Vulcans. Yeah. So I played for the Twin Cities Vulcans of USHL. I decided to come back to high school and then went back. I did a flip-flopping thing, but I did both. I was could have went back with them, thought about sticking back at USHL. And I remember I went to my parents like, you're very talented, but are you going to be a professional? Is that really going to be a thing in your life? And my parents like, why don't you go to school? And I'm like, well, because I want to get a D1 ride somewhere, just like everyone. That's what I wanted to do. My parents, let's before we decide to play juniors again, why don't you go look at a couple of MIAC schools in the state? Because I really wanted them to have the chance to watch me play. It was important to have my parents be able to have the opportunity to watch me play.
That was the thing I hated the most about being up here and mom and dad in Chicago.
Couldn't even imagine.
Couldn't see me.
Couldn't even imagine. And that's hard because they're your parents. You get one set of them and they're memories that they'll always have.
Luckily I didn't play much in college, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, no, it's still a big deal though. It's still a big deal. It's absolutely a big deal. And I remember I got recruited by several colleges, and I went to several campuses within probably a 3-week span. And I remember I walked on St. Olaf's campus and I was like, holy cow, this is beautiful. And then I met with 2 of the players, and it was more of just the vibe you get when you're on a campus of this feels comfortable. I want to be here. Like, it wasn't even a question. I knew what I wanted to do. It was, getting into schools. It was the top MIAC school for as far as academics for hockey that was available for that hockey teams. Carl doesn't have a hockey team at Cal. So I'm like, it'll be a good school. But it was just the feeling I got from the rink. And Whitey Oss was actually the coach at the time, recruiting me for my first year. I don't know if you remember Whitey Oss at all.
The name's familiar, yeah.
Yep. I played for Eric Oss in high school, his son.
Okay.
So the pipeline is already there for him, for my brother and I. But I went there. I was like, this is just home. It was comfortable, and I knew it was going to be a good school. It had majors I was interested in, and my parents like, just do that. Let's not do the junior thing, because I don't think they wanted me to go. They didn't want to rush around. And what did they want? They wanted me to be a 20-year-old freshman. I think they wanted me to figure out my life and what I was going to do from there. So it was a great decision looking back, because funny how I said life works out. But it was, looking back now, it wasn't even close to other colleges I looked at. Not even close. And Whitey Oss is one of my greatest mentors. He was retired the year after my freshman year.
Yeah, and then you guys got Goalie, and he's a love him or hate him kind of coach.
So Goalie came in my sophomore year, I remember, because Whitey retired, and he came in, and Goalie wanted his show, and we're talking two completely different personalities between Whitey. Whitey was very godly, very, I don't think I heard Whitey swear one time. So in my year there, and then Goldie's very intense, but Goldie knows the game. Goldie was an Ole alum, passionate about the school, very passionate about the game, So it was a big difference. But I knew going in that Whitey was only going to last probably a year, and then I didn't know what was going to happen after that. But it was kind of a risk I took going there at that point.
So you're going to school at St. Olaf, but somehow you start spending your summers in Winona working the St. Mary's hockey camp. I mean,
sure.
Say what you will, you are almost a part of the St. Mary's hockey program because of that. How did you get hooked up with that?
It was actually kind of through it was a family thing. A friend of ours died actually during the weekend series at St. Mary's before he played down there. And I was having a rough weekend emotionally off the ice because of a death in a close group we had, a friend of mine from high school in the area. And Don Olson knew me from whatever, Coach Olson, who, again, talk about a man I have so much respect for. I'll mention, that's why I'm there. So Don Olson came to me after the game and literally like, hey, PT, I talked to you. And he literally, after my sophomore year, because I split games my freshman year and then started from sophomore year on. I split games my freshman year, and he knew whatever he thought about me. He's like, I've heard a lot of really good things about you as a person. I've seen this today as how you handled this weekend. He's like, would you ever think about coming down here? For some reason, he felt this thing to ask me to come down there and do be a counselor at the St. Mary's hockey camp this summer. I'm like, that might be fun. So I literally said, let me get back to you. And I literally got an email from him, follow up. And I said, sure, I'll do this. And I was so nervous because I'm this guy from St. Olaf, this goalie from St. Olaf, coming to St. Mary's, where I'm like, they're going to hate me because they don't know who I am and think, what the hell is this guy doing here? And Don and Linda Olson literally brought me in like family immediately. Everyone did, to be honest with you. It was strange.
When I started working at the camp, it was kind of cool that there were, you guys from St. Olaf there, because it kind of created that friendship rivalry. It wasn't just a rivalry when you guys came to town. It was, these guys are here. We want to play well against them, but it's going to be fun one way or the other. Because after you, others followed. We had a couple of
they did. I'm one of my best friends. I still have to this day, Matt Arridge from St. John's, one of their best players ever to play for St. John's. He's one of my best friends in the world. That's where we met down there. Jeff Idem and Jeff Simison came there for 2 summers to help out from St. Olaf. Trying to think who else. Goldie was there. Goldie was there too. He was being the coach in there when I was doing the counselor thing. And then it was hard because summers, literally my best memories. I talk about Winona all the time. Those are my favorite summers of my life. Like not even close. Like
absolutely.
The best times. We're literally sleeping. I started out as a counselor, and then I remember like my senior, I got moved to head counselor from St. Olaf. I was like the head counselor of all which meant nothing but just the fact of they went to me and they didn't pick a St. Mary's kid for that. So Don put a lot of faith in me. And then after I graduated is when I started coaching high school hockey. Then I became a coach and just stuck there. I mean, I was there for over 10 years, I think.
I think that first year you were the head counselor was my first year. And that was just by, happenstance. I registered for classes. They didn't even know who I was. And admissions counselor just somehow heard that they were looking for counselors, and she's like, hey, you should email the coaches. So I emailed them. I emailed Terry, and it was pretty much, can you skate? Yeah, sure, be here on this day. So
I completely believe it.
yeah, that's how it was. And otherwise, if it wasn't for that summer and them getting to know me as a person, I wouldn't have made the hockey team, because I had the conversation with Donnie of, what the heck did you guys see in me? And, he said they could see it. I was the locker room guy. That's why they took me. It was more than just my play. Because that freshman year, we had 26 goalies try out for 6 spots.
Oh my goodness. Which is a lot, right?
I know I was not one of the top 6 goaltenders, but as Donnie said, it was about more than that. And they learned that summer, and seeing my love for the game and, all that good stuff. So I was very fortunate that I got that, recommendation from my admissions counselor to send an email to work that hockey camp. But,
that's pretty fun. Because you remember the first time going there, and then you would line up along the boards and they'd introduce everyone, and that's how you got to know some people, because they'd line up all the campers in the bleachers and you'd be back to the boards, and that's how I got to know your name. Like, okay, so I got to know names and faces, and you were a goalie and I was a goalie, and then then you talk about we started playing. Remember we played peak hockey in some of those. We played the other hockey camp. We'd have a game in one of the evenings against them. That would be like a die. Like, people would hate each other in that game.
Oh yeah, I mean,
physically, camp game was the biggest deal in the world.
Something about playing those folks down at Bud King. I mean, yeah, some of those games. I remember one of the times we played down at Bud King, and I thought fists were going to start flying. It was Jay Ruska too that was going to start throwing them.
Jay Ruska. God, you're bringing up names. That's amazing. You're bringing up Jay Ruska names. You brought up other people as far as like Terry Manor, Donnie Nadeau, guys who, like, I looked at her as mentors and have been nothing but great to me. Even after I see them now, I message them every now and again, are like people that I think the world of. Don Olson, him and I still, message from time to time, and Linda will say the same thing. Like I said, they kind of adopted me as a St. Mary's person. Were always super good to me, even though I was from Olin. It was kind of a weird dichotomy. I'd spend my summers there and my other time in Northfield at St. Olin. But everyone was great. I mean, I look at, I'm not talking Eric Richardson, another goalie, Ryan Stinson. I'm talking about guys that like Scott Cronenbush became like good friends with, like just off the ice and hung out with.
Yeah. Hockey camp was those summers are what I look back at the fondest. I was a little bummed that the summer between my junior and senior year, I had to go back home to work an internship. Lucky for me, it meant I got to skate every day down at Johnny's Ice House, which led to skating with Billy Zito and his group of players at the time because they needed a goalie. So it was like, all right, I still got good hockey in, but I missed the camp atmosphere. So I remember the night I moved on to campus for that first hockey camp was the night Dallas won the Stanley Cup.
Sure.
And I remember we went out, we all got moved into our dorms, and I didn't know what I was in for. So I brought way more stuff than I should have for summer hockey camp.
But hold on. Was it a good goal? Was Brett Hull's goal a good goal?
Absolutely. And I know you agree because you're also a Belfour fan.
Absolutely.
But we go out, we're skating. I'm thinking to myself, I want to watch the game, but I should really go out and skate. And so we're out there skating it was probably 3-4 hours. And we go back to the rooms and we flip on ESPN and the game's still going. And we catch that last goal. It was crazy. But I asked Richie this, and I said, that first time you saw me on the ice, what the hell did you think? And his response was that my style was well suited for the beer leagues.
Actually a really good response.
Yeah. So I kind of want to ask you the same thing. That first time, what were you thinking when you saw me out there as this timid, kid skating with all of these college kids? But you didn't play timid though. You played like you belonged there. You played like you thought you belonged there. You felt, and you played like how about this? You played more athletic than you probably were. That you eventually. How about that? Than what you had inside you. How about That's
that?
Fair. That's fair.
Which is a good thing. Which is a compliment in a good way because you had sometimes more natural. It's the same thing, and sometimes people have athleticism. You got 100% out of your athleticism. What you're gonna do plus more. That's what I can say.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a little nicer than the way Richie put it, but he was spot on. if you think about my style.
But what about him? What can he say?
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly. And it's funny because I've been skating with Alan Knowles recently, and we were laughing about it, and I told him that, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's so true." But then we're skating, and he's I wouldn't say he's changed anybody. We got done with our skate, and he's like, "Jesus Christ, Bondo, like, how are you still that limber? Just like we're still in college." He's like, "You're 40 years old, and you're still doing the splits."
but because you kept playing, and I said you get what you do athletically, and you can still do it.
Yeah.
I think the same thing. I was more. What would you describe how I played? Same thing. I mean, it's the same thing. It's through your own eyes.
Yeah, the way you played it, I viewed it very much as a disciplined 90s style, almost Bill Ranford like.
Probably, yeah, probably very, very, very good. I've never heard the Bill Ranford. Yeah, probably, yeah. But I got peppered at 50 shots a game, so I had to be disciplined.
Yeah,
you were several years.
Yeah, it was fun watching you play when you guys came down. That was for sure. So I
good teams that you guys had too. I'm talking my earliers with DeMars and Savino. Those were some good players.
Nate DeMars,
good D3 players.
Nate DeMars lives 4 doors down from me.
You're kidding me.
No.
That is so funny. Again, great hockey player from Matamidi. He was great in high school and transferred. Savino, he came out of nowhere, truly.
Yeah. It was
a goal scorer.
Funny when I moved in, and it was like, you look because Nate graduated the year before I got there, but his brother Tony was there. And so I'm looking, I'm like, you look like I know you. And I remembered him coming down to visit a couple times. And then we both made the connection. It was like, what are the odds? And then we got Emmons right down the road.
That's really funny.
Yeah. Just the way it's a small world. I'm surprised I haven't run into Johnny Redpath because he's a Matamidi boy too.
He is. Johnny Redpath is a Matamidi guy. Absolutely. And Tony, I think, his brother was a goalie, right?
No.
DeMars.
No, he was.
DeMars' brother wasn't a goalie? I think he was. I think he was their goalie from Matamidi. Look into that.
Oh, maybe.
DeMars' brother was a goalie from Matamidi.
I'll have to look into that.
Look into that. I'd be curious. I think he was.
Yeah. So, those summer camps, I still remember that first year. It was the one night we didn't have kids coming early or staying late, and we went bowling. And that's the night Stinny put Bondo into the computer for a nickname. Yes, I didn't have one. And it was funny because like sophomore year on, kids thought that was my real last name because Terry would put Joe Bondo on the practice schedule, and it would I remember Russ Swanson, Coach Olson puts the actual, end of tryouts, here's the roster, and Joe Drennan, and Swanson's going, who's this Drennan kid? I was like, dude, that's me. He's like, no, it's not. Your name's Joe Bondo. I was like, no, I had to take my license out and show it to him to prove. And he's like, well, how did you get that nickname? I was like, drunk bowling. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, that's
Westgate Bowl.
We got drunk. We went bowling. Stinny's typing in everybody's nicknames. He turns to me like glassy. He's like, hey, you got a nickname? No. And he stares at the computer for a few moments. He turns back. He goes, Bondo. I like it. Types it into the computer. And the next, I don't know how Terry and Coach O and Donnie found out about that so quickly, but
it became Bondo.
Yeah. I mean,
that's so awesome. Remember bowling. That's so, I mean, I literally said, I bet you every summer I came back with enough money to get gas money home because we ended up doing so many extracurricular fun things outside of you spent the money you made.
Oh yeah.
Truly, between bowling and going out or playing, it was, and it was so much fun.
I remember that particular week, the kids were so bad. It was week 2 because they were sports, and the kids were so bad, and we were charging them a quarter for swearing. And you guys had enough money to buy like a case of beer, some vodka, and it was like before we even got to the bowling. I don't know why, but you hadn't started drinking yet, so you decided to be the designated driver and get us down there because I remember that too because you had that small car. We get everybody piled in, and there wasn't room for me, and we're like, "What are we gonna do?" And I just remember the door was open. And I look, I was like, "Hang on," and I just start running, dive in, across the laps. If I remember right, my legs were sticking out the window as we drove down the hill.
in the hill. So good. Yeah. Let's go back and do that again. Like for even for a month. It was, I learned so much about even people and coaching and just about different, you learned a lot there off besides hockey. Cause it was more, I talked about the time for me to make some money. It was a time for me to learn some skills with dealing with people and kids, but then it was more like I got to play. I got to like, get better in the summer.
Yeah.
Outside of just, I got to skate and do goalie stuff. Loved it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I got so much better just with those after hours skates, and even the morning power skate that we ran for the kids. We were the ones that had to do the drills, and it's like my edge work was so good because of that.
Because Terry Manor wasn't going to do it.
Oh, God, no.
Goalie wasn't going to do the skating.
Well, Terry was walking on the concrete with his skates to begin with, so you knew he couldn't do edge work.
Awesome.
But aside from the hockey side of it, just learning how to deal with different situations, deal with, I mean, we were dealing with 30 kids all by ourselves. First of all, that was birth control. Second of all, it was how do you deal with difficult situations where you don't have a manual of how to deal with it, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
You'll be walking down the dorm. You got one kid that's just completely homesick, and then another one that's trying to, you know, explore the freedoms of mom and dad not being there, you know, and then it's like you got your normal sports that are just morons to begin with that you got to be like, all right, guys, calm down. Lights out.
It was a week of daycare for the parents to get them out of the house.
Oh God, yeah.
And you're forgetting about the point of how hot it was in those damn dorms. Remember trying to sleep in some of that? It was awful.
Yeah. Well,
sticking to the sheet, awful.
When Nosey and I reconnected, we joked about the time that it was move-in day and he's passed out in his room with the door open and benilled, sleeping in just his boxers with like no sheets on the bed. And Coach O is walking a family by and his door is wide open. And he goes, and here's one of our counselor Al's room. And he peeks in and he just quietly closes the door. And Al thought for sure he was going home.
Yeah, Coach is not great, I'm sure. And then Coach O was an amazing man, but he could be kind of intimidating if he wasn't happy with you. Well, how about that? Coach, respect. The respect was there.
Didn't he have his psychology degree from Harvard? So, I mean, the guy knew how to manipulate your mind.
Super smart.
If he needed to.
Super smart. Him and his wife both are super smart. How about that? Him and his wife are both super smart.
But incredibly
caring.
Nice.
Good people.
Yeah, caring, good people. The one year, so one of the Winona County Sheriff's deputies used to be a Chicago paramedic. And so he knew my dad. And one of the weeks, there were 3 firemen whose kids were in the class. Because, you know, like half the camp would come up from Chicago, just like half the school is from the Chicagoland area. And these 3 firemen, their kids are in the class. They know Steve. So Steve swings by after work with his squad car and he's watching the scrimmages. And I forget why I was filling in for somebody reffing. And Steve goes, hey, we're going to go to my house for some cake and coffee afterwards. You know, me and the 3 guys. He goes, you want to come with? And I go, yeah, I'm actually off duty tonight after the game. He goes, great. I said, problem though, Steve, is I don't have a car here. He goes, that's all right. I'll give you a ride. I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. So after the game, I walk out and he had the squad car like parked right outside the door, not in the parking lot, but right outside the door. And he puts me in the back seat while all the campers are walking back to the dorm. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then he goes back into the rink for like another 15 minutes. So I'm sitting in the back of the squad car right outside there. And Coach Olson, the best part though is Coach Olson walks out and he sees me in the back of the squad car. Thank God Steve and Mrs. Olson and Linda were on the PTA together. So Coach Olson knew Steve and he knew me. And he walks out and he goes, oh, you must be going over to Steve's tonight for cake and coffee.
So he knew.
Yeah, he knew. I'm willing to bet that Steve went inside and found Coach Olson and goes, you got to go pick on him. He's in the back of my car because then Steve comes out and he gets on the phone and he calls my house. And this is like 9:30 at night.
Right.
And my sister answers and he's got it on speakerphone. He goes, this is the Winona County Sheriff's deputy. I've got Joseph in the back of my car. And I could hear the excitement in my sister's voice. So she's like, Mom, Dad, you need to come to the phone. And Joseph's in a police car. My dad picks up the phone. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
So he knew right away too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I mean, he knew. So yeah, we went to the house and then he brought me back to campus. And it was funny because this car, I don't know what moron would do it, but somebody did on Highway 14 going up the hill, just speeds right by his squad car is where, and they were probably 15 miles over. And he goes, it's late. I'm just going to get you back to campus.
Happens every day. People don't realize sometimes we're not even paying attention when we're working.
Yeah.
Or we just let things slide.
Well, I remember I had the talk with him, and he said he rarely wrote a ticket for a college student. He said, because it's not fair to mom and dad because they were the ones paying the ticket, but he was going to keep them there for about 30 minutes and lecture them and really make them sweat. It was like, man, that's a really good point, that mom and dad are the ones typically paying those tickets.
They are. He also made a good point about, we always talk about, you don't ticket and lecture. We do one or the other, because you don't want to ticket someone and then tell them how bad they are, because it's doubling down on something that's already bad enough day.
I remember the one day I was making the trip to La Crosse to pick up some campers, and it was high school week. I remember that. And we had just gotten some new 12-person passenger vans, where the old ones, you had to like stand up on the pedal to get it to go the speed limit, or this one, like you just had to touch it and boom, you're off and going. I wanted to get back to campus because I think we were going to play hockey that night or something. And so I'm doing like 75, 80 coming into Winona, where it's like 55. And it's a divided highway, and I just see the county sheriff go by the other way. And I look back at these kids. They said, watch how you talk yourself out of a ticket here. And they had to go to where they could turn around. I was already slowed down in the right-hand lane with the blinkers on. So they knew I knew I was, but it was still like another quarter mile to that stoplight by Perkins. So I waited and I pulled into the Perkins parking lot.
Oh yeah, I know exactly.
To get them off of 61 there. And the officer comes up, he goes, why did you wait to pull over? I said, well, it's a busy highway. I wanted to pull off someplace that was safer for you. And he kind of goes, oh, okay. He goes, any reason you were in a hurry? I said, honestly, I've been driving these school vans all summer that were old, and I had to, stand up on the thing to get it to go. I said, this is a brand new one. It's still got the sticker on the back. It a lot touchier. He goes, okay. He goes, any idea how fast you were going? I said, well, when I passed you or in general? And he just kind of smirked and looked at me. He goes, well, when you passed me, I said, probably 75. And he goes, that's pretty close. And so he went back. So I had a clean record, and he goes, well, it's 55 the rest of the way campus. Just observe the speed limit and we'll have a good day. But it was like,
but you remember the interaction, and it was a positive one because you had a sense of humor with the whole thing, and that does go a long way.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, I've got some family that's in law enforcement, and because of connections my dad made, they always said, if you have a chance to get off the road and put them in a safer situation, they're going to appreciate that. But don't just keep going. That's why I put my flashers on and slow down. I let them know, like, hey, I see you, because this is before cell phones. So it's not like today, if I was on the freeway, I would call up, the non-emergency number and say, hey, I got a guy behind me, to let them know I'm going to get to the next off ramp for him. But it was just
before
like
cell phones.
Yeah.
Oh.
God,
we didn't have cell phones. So think about that. Remember, I literally it's funny you mention that.
We had calling cards.
We did. And I had to go back to the room. Like my mom, like, I'm going to call you at 9:30 tonight. I'd be like, okay. And that's when your mom would call you at 9:30 to say hi.
The off-campus double ring. We got so excited when you got the double rings. Like, who's calling?
That's so funny. Because there was no cell phones. I mean, literally, she's like, I'm going to check in one day this week. I'd be like, all right, come this day. And literally, they call at 9:30. It was funny. And they call and then be the double ring and pick up. And like you mentioned earlier about your night off. Remember, you had some nights off, and you'd live for those when you didn't have to stay with the campers all night long.
Or that Saturday where a camper would be staying a day later or come in a day early because of flights. Then we would literally draw straws to see who had to stay back in the dorm to watch them.
So many good memories. This is awesome. Absolutely. That's so funny.
Yeah. So you mentioned now you're a cop.
Somebody had to watch them for a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, so you mentioned you're a cop these days, which not only are you a cop, but you're a cop in Minnesota. I have to imagine the last year and a half, 2 years, that's been really difficult emotionally.
Sure.
How have you done with that? And, how's the department handling that?
We have great people that work for us. I say all the time, we treat people well here in Northfield. You have to. They like to be heard. But in general, it has been a tough time for the law enforcement profession. I think it's hard because I think, how we do things here might be different than people do things in other departments.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that how can I put this in their best? I think that I think media spun things at times it's hard. Media's got a big throng in everything that happens, whether it's sports, politics, law enforcement. It's a big deal. When law enforcement makes mistakes, we need to own it.
Yep.
We need to absolutely own it, and we need to own it and be like, we need to get better. When law enforcement does good things, we need to own that too and focus on those good things. I say all the time, we hire from the same gene pool that every profession does. Yep. And the gene pool isn't perfect. How about that? The gene pool isn't perfect, and we have to weed through the ones. But it's not even the 99% of cops are good, 1% bad. It's more of just, if something bad happens, we need to own it, and we need to become accountable, and we need to do better in the profession. Yep. And I think it's been tough because through not even just civil unrest or COVID, it's been tough because I say all the time, our men and women records from police officers have been working every day, not at home.
Yep.
Not sitting in the comforts of their own home working. They've been in the office, on the streets, working with people, Absolutely. Wearing masks, wearing gloves, putting themselves and their families in danger of COVID and whatever else other because they want to help people. So I think that gets forgotten and lost in a lot of this, that they've been there with the AMS and ambulance, same thing, ground zero, even more with us all the time.
Yeah, you bring up a good point that I think a lot of people don't take into account when they think of first responders is the impact on their family too. A perfect example is 9/11. We talked about that double ring on campus. My dad at the time was the head of collapse rescue in the city of Chicago. So when that first tower went down, I knew immediately then he was going to New York. I waited until I think it was about 8:30. That phone rang, the double ring. And back then, because it would be like, all right, I'm calling at 9:30. Those phone calls were usually about 45 minutes because that was the one time a week you would talk because you weren't texting. And God forbid my dad figured out email. I mean, it wasn't until just recently that my mom still had to print my dad's emails so he could read them and then write out long form his responses. So that wasn't an option back in the 90s. But when I got that double ring, it was, I could recite verbatim that phone call. It was so short because we couldn't get the words out, and the impact it had on the family, just people don't take that into account with the first responders. And I know cops are thick-skinned. They can take what people are saying about them, but the wives at home, the kids at home, the moms and dads, that's who it affects the most.
It completely does. When I talk to people, it's there's people every night working while people are sleeping, living the dream, right? Sleeping, living the dream. And there's police officers who are working the night shift, making sure that everything goes smooth. Tonight, I got to go back into work to do a night shift briefing, and my family is going to be like, all right, we'll see you later. See you home. It's not easy all the time, but you have to have understanding family members, wife and children, in the long run, it's not something that happens all the time, but it needs to happen. And I'm blessed because I've been working since investigations to now a deputy chief. I've been working day hours, Monday through Friday. I've been pretty blessed. But the patrol officers, they're working every other weekend, 8:30 at night to 6:30 in the morning. And then when they're trying to sleep during the day, when their kids are up living. Yep. So it's not easy.
My cousin's husband is a cop in the suburbs of Chicago, and he said he wanted to work nights his whole career so that on his retirement day, he could turn in his badge and the chief look at him and go, "Who are you?"
Right. Yeah. Right. And some people do want to work nights so they don't have to be around administration or deal with, because day shift's a whole nother beast because you have to deal with awake people then.
Yeah. Well, he loved nights because that's when the crazies come out.
It does.
You think back to the TV show Cops, how often was it dark out in all of those interactions? There's a reason. It's just that's when the craziness happens. Right. I mean, even when my dad was working, they paid attention to the cycle of the moon. If it was a full moon, it was going to be a busy night, even for the fire department. And Dad he tended to work in the bad neighborhoods, and he was in Inglewood, and his engineer would say, somebody sprinkled the stupid dust over the neighborhood again tonight.
And I think about even busy law enforcement in Chicago, how weekends, it's 10s and 20 people shot every weekend.
Yeah. Well,
and you think of the stuff they're going through, and they literally see it every weekend.
Yeah, and I've got some high school classmates and teammates who are on Chicago, and there's an issue with suicides right now within the ranks, and I mean that's another thing that I think your average citizen doesn't think about is what is the mental toll that's happening on him. My brother-in-law, he's another example. He's a corrections officer, and he's in the middle of a PTSD early retirement because he's been attacked so many times in the prison. And those are things you guys bring home.
You do. And we don't 100%. And with mental health being a big part of it, we're going to start doing mental health check-ins and stuff with our officers, because we see things you shouldn't see.
Yep.
The normal person, you deal with things you shouldn't see. And like you said, you bring it home.
Yeah.
And you try not to bring it home and let it affect home life. But again, you're human. When you talk about suicides, you see the suicides, not even just police officers. You guess who gets to go investigate suicides? We do.
Yep.
We got to show up and look at that and clean that mess up and deal with the families being upset in the investigation. There's things that we shouldn't see as humans that we see on a weekly basis.
Growing up, I started going, it was my 7th birthday. It was the first time I went to the firehouse with my dad. So every chance after that, I went, and I learned very early on that the reason first responders have a dark, sick sense of humor is that's how they deal with it. And that's also why me and my sister have a dark, sick sense of humor, because that's how we were brought up.
Yep.
But at the same time, I've very much likened life in the firehouse, and I'm sure it's very much the same at the police station. The closest thing to it is life in a hockey locker room, because if you're not getting picked on, that's when you got to be worried. That's when you're not accepted. But when they're picking on you and pulling these pranks that would probably, anywhere else in the working environment would be grounds for firing. Whereas like in those environments, it's like, you got me there. You better watch your back.
And it is at times. I think it's been a little more now HR friendly, and when I first started, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Pranks, but you have to watch feelings and how people react to things.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's like, that's the closest thing I've found. But
I hope it's never like our hockey locker room, because that would be, unreal.
Yeah. If HR ever, if
even now, think about anything you did back then, because now they at Sainty, if they do things, any kind of hazing, any kind of thing that they consider hazing will shut a season down. Consider hazing.
When I was a freshman, the tradition was red-white game. Any freshman playing had to wear their helmet to class, and they put an end to that. Simple, like nobody's getting hurt. I love the hazing, something like that, where nobody gets hurt. It's just like and what it also did is it brought awareness to campus, because anybody who wasn't a freshman knew, red-white games tonight. Kids are walking.
Sure. Yep.
And then, but they put an end to it because of the way things are. Oh, that's something we learned in our NCAA meeting that year. But I still remember that meeting. Richie wasn't quite 21 yet. And the lady's asking, if you're old enough to drink, how many drinks an hour can you have? And Richie raises his hand. He goes, well, if I remember right back to freshman orientation, it's about 1 drink an hour. And she's getting ready to say, very good, very good. Goes, but if you hold the darn thing for more than 15 minutes, it starts to get warm. So you got to drink it up pretty quick. And you turn around, and Coach Olson's just in the back going, Jesus, Richie. And
He's got a valid point.
Yeah. And we're all just roaring.
Sounds like him.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking for a little while. And we could probably go on for quite a long time, but
we could.
You've listened to a few of the episodes, so I like to finish with a round of rapid fire questions. And I want to leave plenty of time for this first one, because you played for Goalie. What's the craziest coaching moment from your playing days?
Sure. With Goalie? Or in general?
I'm just guessing it probably is with Goalie. If there's one that doesn't involve him that's worse, I'd love to hear that one.
I can tell you a story of one time. We were getting just destroyed. We were actually playing out in Air Force, out in Colorado Springs, and I think after 2 periods, the shots were like 43 to like 8, and we were down 2-1, still in the game. And Goldie was doing a Goldie thing, really up, going on a Goldie rant where he'll go on a rant.
Yeah.
And he's throwing, he literally took the stick rack, back out, whatever. And he's literally screaming he's going to cut everyone but me and like 2 other guys. Like literally going down, you're cut. I'm keeping you. I'm going to start over. We're going to start fresh. I'm like, and everyone's sitting there like, it's almost funny because it's not real, but it's almost hard to hear at times at that point. But it's like, I remember literally saying, you're not going to cut everybody because we'd have nobody left. But just the way his intensity, which is how I took it. Today wouldn't flow as well, I don't think. How about that? But just how he went down and said, you're cut, everyone's cut, but you, and that's just his intensity. He wanted everyone to do so well that's how it came out.
Yeah.
Like it or not, and it wasn't always great, but that's how it came out.
I've oftentimes wondered if the coach from the TV show Letterkenny is supposed to be Goldie.
Could be. But Goldie can be very affable and Goldie's very smart. He can be very in the recruiting phase, he can be like the smallest guy in the world. When he switches that trigger to being it's time to be competitive, it's a whole new world that I've never seen.
He really was a different guy off the ice. I still remember that. I was telling the story on the episode I had with Jude Hall where I almost threw him out of a game during hockey camp because he got so upset of like, I don't even know if it was an offsides call or what that I made.
And it's a camp game.
Yeah, and he squirts water at me, and I turned around, and I had my arm cocked. I was going to throw him out, but then I saw all of those kids behind him, and I saw the look in his eyes. He's like, oops, I crossed the line. And I just looked at him and turned around. And I remember after the game, Terry's like, you could have thrown him out. He deserved it. I was like, yeah, but he did come up to me man to man and he apologized. He's like, I can't promise it won't happen again, but it shouldn't have happened then.
That's I 100% believe that was his response. I can't promise it won't happen again, but I apologize.
Yes.
You said that perfect. I guarantee that's exactly what he said.
Yes. Yeah.
But I will say this, he's been nothing but a great mentor to me. Anytime I've needed any kind of reference or my name plugged, he's always been there for me. He's been one of probably my biggest mentors I've had. He just always, if I need something, I can call him. I know he's been through he was very upset when he left St. Olaf. So him and I have chatted several times about that to make sure we're on the same page. But no, he's, like I said, people love him or hate him. And I'm in the group who's always got along with him.
I still remember him telling the story. He's like, yeah, if you think I'm crazy, you should see my wife. And he was talking about their dogs and how they wouldn't shut up the one day. So she went up and like bit down on the one's ear and it stopped barking. How they listened to her, but it was like, you think I'm crazy? It's like, well,
I 100% believe it. 100% believe it.
Sometimes crazy has to marry crazy.
It works out.
Yeah, exactly. So the next question is, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Oh, well, I mean, the Belfour Hawk was amazing.
Yeah.
That was like my first original.
Which one? The original Hawk or
the how about this? The Hawk helmet that ended the Met Center, the last game of the Met Center, 3-2 of the Wild. I don't remember, that was the last game that ended the Met Center. That Hawk, was my because like I said, as you know, I was a big Eddie Belfour fan even when I was from Minnesota. And I have to listen to the podcast with him yet to see.
Yeah, which
I mean, he wasn't always easy to get along with, was the rumor through everything.
Yeah,
in the locker room, and I'm sure he acknowledges it. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Well, I would liken him to, he's got the intensity of Goldie, where it's
okay, sure.
But when we do get together for a drink, he sent me some of his whiskey, so we'll have to sample some of that.
I will probably. Or the Cujo mask was my other. Curtis Joseph's mask was always my other favorite. If you have to look that up, those are my two favorites.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Cujo one. Is it the one with the dog or the one I always associate with Cujo, that original one with the notes and the trumpets from when he was a Hawk killer, which is why I don't like him.
No, I like the maple leaf Cujo with it had
the dog
teeth at the bottom, the underneath. The dog, that was awesome.
I don't know if you've had a chance to read his book, but I have, and oh my God, is it such a page turner. He has led an incredible life. And
I'm gonna have to read that. I have not. Okay.
while I did not enjoy him when he played for the Blues, I have a lot of
Sure.
respect for him now.
Sure. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
So, since we're talking masks, I got to ask you about your pro mask, because I had one in high school. I have it over my shoulder there.
Yep.
You're one of the only other goalies I know that had a pro mask. So I'm wondering, what did you like about it? I mean, I thought it was a great mask. What did you like about it?
Vision. It was all about
Yeah.
the vision in my sight lines. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
It
'cause
was all
had more of a angled cage.
correct. I was big about that. I was big about peripheral, how I could see out the sides and the corners, especially. That was my biggest thing. Obviously, you can switch the mask up, but just how not because the mask can get the actual mask part you can switch off, but just the way it was designed through for me able to see my peripheral, I felt like I had good vision in it, and that was my
absolutely
belief on it.
Well, after my concussion freshman year, I went to the Hasek helmet for a year, if you remember that. And
I do. You did the Dominator. Yep.
That's the one thing I loved was the peripheral vision. There was nothing obstructing, and on top of that, I could move my head all the way down and see, everything in it. Then I got another concussion, and mom and dad and Terry told me I had to go back to a regular goalie mask. The best part about that, though, is I didn't wear a dangler with that thing. I just wore it just like Hasek. Didn't take one puck to the neck the whole time I wore that whole year. First practice back with a mask, and I was borrowing a kid who didn't make the team his mask, and it's the same one I wound up buying, which was the Heaton with the extended neck.
Yep.
Get a puck right up underneath that extended chin.
Of course you did.
And of course I couldn't help but laugh, going, for a year I had this whole area exposed and nothing. And now I have something right here, and a puck deflects right up and gets me. It was like,
that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, what are the odds? So what's your favorite rink that you've played at?
Well, there's two reasons. I'm going to say two rinks. Okay. I'm going to say two rinks. I love the structure in Northfield, as awful as it still is today. I love the atmosphere of the structure in the old Northfield hockey arena. You could fit, 700 people in there, and that's it. But they'd be right on top of you. Loud. Back in the day, the boards weren't that hard. They would literally shake with every. If you remember, they would shake. There was no. I love the atmosphere of the structure. Now everything else about it's terrible.
Yeah.
But game day, how about that?
Yeah.
But game
that
day.
makes sense.
Have you seen St. Olaf's new rink on campus?
I haven't.
You need to get up there.
I've heard good things about it, though.
It's more than awesome. It's loved it to death. And I obviously
funny because when I was talking to Knowles, he was asking, he goes, so when the team plays at St. Olaf, do they still have to get dressed over at the gym and get bussed over to the arena? I said, no, they got a new rink, bud.
It's on campus.
Yeah.
We literally used to bus over there in vans. It was embarrassing. We would put our stuff on the head. Yeah. Anyways. And then I always loved playing, which they don't anymore, at the fairgrounds, at the Coliseum on the fairgrounds. Hotter than hell in there. But we ended up playing. St. Thomas was playing there when I was still going. But I had more for the high school in Hamlin. Yep. Them in the high school hockey section atmosphere there was for some reason awesome at that. I love just, you could fit a lot of people in there. It was hotter than hell. The sound was weird how it reverberated, but I loved playing in the Coliseum on the fairgrounds.
There was just something about how the boards were here and then the stand started here. There was like this whole
like a house in between. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember the first time I saw a game there, we had played a JV game at like 11 o'clock on a Saturday, and I played, and some kid just ran me. We were playing the Ice Hawks, and
junior B Ice Hawks.
Yeah, because we would schedule those junior B teams just to round out our schedule.
Yeah,
because not every MIAC team had a JV team, and so I was never good at playing the puck, but for once I bounced the puck off the boards, hit Jeff Rose at center ice, and he's going.
Jeff Rose, White Bears only.
Yeah, and this kid's skating full bore at me, elbows to the head, and I'm between the hash marks on the top of the circle. And it was the one game nobody's mom or dad was there videotaping, and the teammates tell me I was parallel with the ice, facing down. My body did 2 turns, and the head hit the ice, and I was out. And it was a delayed penalty, so I'm just laying there. And you remember the training staff at St. Mary's and how they were good for Band-Aids. And so the whistle blows, and I start getting up, not knowing where the heck I am. So I hold on to the crossbar for the last 7.5 minutes of the game. Didn't let a goal in. I still got the W, but I'm in the locker room afterwards. I'm eating an apple, and I'm halfway through this apple, and I go, I don't like apples.
What am I eating this for?
Yeah, what am I eating this for? And he's like, my head hurts. And Rose is sitting across from me. He's like, dude, you got rocked. I was like, I did. And then I think it was Frischman was sitting by me. He goes, you should probably go see the trainer. So
Yeah.
I walk down the hallway. I go see the trainer, and I'm just standing there with my bottoms on, and she's like, what are you doing here? It's like, they said I got hit. And she's like, oh, you got destroyed. It's like,
That's awesome.
I don't remember it. So then, they're doing, this little test. And it's like, they're like, yeah, you got a concussion. Do you have anybody that can watch you the rest of the day so you don't fall? I was like, I don't know, probably. And Terry's standing there. He goes, Bondo, we're getting ready to go up to the cities. Just shower up and come with us. It's like, but I just have track pants and stuff. And he's like, don't worry about it. So I ride up with them. Poor Trotch, he was a healthy scratch that game. So he had to sit next to me on the bus and watch me. And every bump, I felt like I was going to be nauseous and throw up.
Absolutely. It's the worst.
What did I do? And I mean, it was best I sat next to him because the kid's an oncologist these days. I ran into him 2 years ago at a baseball game. Our sons were playing each other.
Funny. Another random thing. Sure.
Yeah. But so he had to watch me. And I remember we get there and, the visitor locker room, as you remember, is like way away from the ice on the concourse. And I'm like, are you guys getting ready in a broom closet? What's going on? It was just crazy. And then we're sitting in the stands watching the game and I see the Hamlin logo. I'm like, Piper, what the heck is a fighting Piper? Like, I'm not scared of a Piper. He's just laughing at me. It's like, it was funnier then as if I were drunk, he said.
Believe that.
Yeah. So, all right, I digress. Next question is, what's your favorite stick that you've ever used?
I used some Coopers in high school. And of course
the Reactor 5.
Yeah. And then I was using Christian to start, went to the Coopers. And then in college, I went back to whatchamacallit. I'm drawing a blank. Why am I drawing a blank when I was in college?
Co-host?
I can see him as a nope. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. I'd have to look. You know what? I sent you those pictures. They'd be right there.
Yeah, and the one picture I'm looking at is
it'd be Christians. I got a pile of the Christians, the old Christians that would be heavier than all Gideon compared to what they have now.
I used the Christians in college too, and I loved them. The thing I laugh about with the Christian is when that heel started to like become a sponge.
Yep.
I would just throw a little wood glue. Yeah, you'd throw a little wood glue in there, put it in the vise overnight, and it's like good as new.
And put that tape. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. You put the wood together, put the tape over it, and then put the tape together in a tighter spot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same thing. That's hilarious.
But for me, I saw that one picture you sent over from high school, and you had the Cooper Reactor 5. I'm like, I sure hope he says that because that is my all-time favorite stick. It was a strong stick, but had flex to it, and to me, it was just the greatest stick ever made.
I loved it. No, I had a bunch of those. My dad bought me like 5 at a time. I remember.
Yeah, I wish they would bring it back. And what I loved about it too is the paddle wasn't, kind of rounded. It was a flat paddle, and I just felt like I had more control with that flat paddle. Yep. I loved it.
You got a good memory.
So what is I did break quite a few of them over my knee in anger in high school too. Sure. So they had one weak spot, and it was where the paddle met the shaft.
Snap.
Well, I would just take it and, boom, right across the pad, and it would break. So what is your favorite youth hockey memory?
I would probably say, besides Centennial, we went up with a team to Canada and won this tournament in Winnipeg with it's a Team Minnesota thing. Mm-hmm. And it was for some reason, playing with, you probably don't know names, some of the old Eric Maxmenko, actually got Jason Bisk. We had a bunch of guys that would play winning the tournament, and it was probably my biggest memory because we beat this team from Winnipeg that were, it was like a bunch of bullies that were throwing everyone 3-2. But that's probably my greatest memory, is driving up there and then driving back all excited and thinking we run the world, because I was probably a second year Pee Wee at that point. So
that's awesome. And A little delayed in my response because I just got a text from Alan Knowles saying, "Hey, can you skate with me tonight?"
That's funny. You better go skate.
Oh, I would, but I got to get some stuff done around the house. We're hosting a wedding reception for my brother-in-law this weekend, and I have a few outdoor projects I got to finish up before they come.
Sure.
But it's funny. It's like, I would like to, but I'm talking to PT right now.
Sorry, give me a minute.
Yeah. So what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you?
Oh, best chirp I've ever heard. I would probably say we had a guy. Well, my brother was good for a couple chirps. He played. He ended up going to St. Alphys a year after me, which I was lucky to sit in front of me. And I remember a kid crashed into me after making a save, and I remember him looking down. He literally said, "You know that's my brother, right?" After giving him this across the neck, he's going down. He's like, "You know that's my brother, right?" And as simple as it was, that's the cleanest chirp. I'm not going to even need dirty chirps, but cleanest I was. He's like, "You know that's my brother, right?" And he literally has a stick pretty much across his neck. Like, "You know that's my brother, right?" So I think it makes me think just about how it was great to play with him for 3 years there as well. But yeah, just my face of, yeah, that's my brother defending me. That's what he should do.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that one because almost the cleaner the chirp, it's almost like that's the better one because it's just so like.
Not the Letterkenny chirps, which are hilarious.
Those are great too.
Or the old, I literally, when I need to laugh every now and again, I'll watch the old, if you watch the old North Star chirping bellows from the benches. So, I mean, it's absolutely unreal. Not made for TV, but it's absolutely just how hilarious it was back in those days, and they didn't care what they said, or it was just ruthless, rude, but so funny. And then who was the guy that they had during the winter game that was chirping the whole time for the Flyers a couple years ago? If you watch him, watch the outdoor game, he was chirping people. I can't think of his name now. Awesome, absolutely, you have to watch it.
I liked in it was 2010 when the Hawks beat Philadelphia and Dan Carcillo was still on the Flyers, and he went to hit a Hawk, like just going full speed to hit a Hawk player, and he steps out of the way, and Carcillo takes out one of his own players, just destroys them. And from the bench you hear, "That's the best hit you've had all night." You know, it's like those are some of the best ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the worst post-game beer?
Oh, Busch Light's terrible. I can't. So I got into, after hockey, I got to play a bunch of softball, and a bunch of my ball buddies. I can't do it. After hockey, Busch Light's just the worst. Just can't do it. Yeah. Can't get into it. Can't try. Can't do it. Hope it sounds like you agree.
I agree, and I just got a response from Knowlesy too.
What do you say?
His simple response was, "That's right, F." I was like, half the stuff Knowlesy says just doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I'm with you. Really, I'll drink Busch Light if that's all they have, as long as it's cold. Right. But to me, the worst is warm beer.
Well, right. Yeah. Gross.
So
warm Busch Light would be the worst.
You mentioned that you've played softball. Are you still skating it all these days?
Not much. No. I get told all the time that by someone I live in this house with that I should be coaching Olivia every day, and I should be doing it and get back out there. And I'll look at it this year. It's time. It's tough to commit to things and you don't want to commit and not be able to be there. So I love to watch her skate. No, like no interest. How about that? Like ball now, even by the shirt, like love fishing, love bass fishing. Like it's easier on the body. I love, it's so much easier on the body. We love catching bass. We love being on the lake. That's kind of what we do. Hockey, just have no interest in going out. Like Matt Erich, I chat with him quite a bit. He's still playing like 2-3 nights a week in the winter, and he's still a really good player. But I have no interest in doing that, and I don't have the time. That's the other thing. As far as, and the extra time I have, I wouldn't want to invest in that. I love watching Olivia play. I'll go to the rink and watch her. I love watching the NHL playoffs. I mean, obviously, it's the best playoffs there is. But yeah.
I'm still skating. I skate on one team. It's the team that Emmons got me on, and now he doesn't skate on the team anymore because he's got little ones at home. But it's mostly Hugo, White Bear, and Stillwater Firefighters. So our team name is the Hosers. So yeah, I'm still skating whenever so I still skate, and then I pick up skates whenever I can. In fact, I'm still wearing the same equipment I had back in college. but I recently
That's crazy.
a month ago tomorrow placed a new order finally. So I'm anxiously counting down the days till the new stuff comes in.
Good for you. You love doing it. That's good for you. You always have.
Yeah. So when you taped your stick, did you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Heel to toe, and ended on the toe all the time.
Yeah. Is one goalie I had on put it, any goalie that goes toe to heel is a psychopath. I don't know if
as we all are.
But the ones that typically go toe to heel play the puck a lot, and they just feel the puck comes off the blade better. I was like, well, I've never had to worry about that. So
no, absolutely no. It's heel to toe all the time, and very particular about it, like most are. Yeah. I had to redo it if I didn't like it right. I had to redo it.
If we're talking playing the puck, you'll appreciate this one. My very first game at Gustavus, you'll remember that rink was tiny.
Yep.
Especially behind the net. And St. Mary's, we have the Olympic sheet. So for me to stop that ring around the boards, I had to have a really hard push getting around that post. And before the game at Gustavus, I'm looking at my angles and worrying about, because I knew it was a smaller rink, thinking about that. I didn't think about the space behind the net. And there's about this much room behind that net at Gustavus. And that first ring comes, I get a push. I hit the boards. I come back, darn near fall down. The puck goes right by me. And I look at the bench and Manner's just laughing. And we go into the locker room for intermission. He goes, I knew I forgot to tell you something.
It'd been good to tell him then before the game started. That's funny. He recognized there was an issue.
Yeah, it's like, yep. Yeah. So every game after that, I just remember, don't push so hard to stop that puck behind the net. Yeah. I mean, at that rink, you almost didn't even have to come out of the net. You could just stick your stick back there and you would stop.
It felt like there's no room back there compared to St. Mary's, where it was a world. I mean, I played at Centennial, which is an Olympic rink, same thing. Huge.
Yeah. Well, and I liked that Gustavus rink just because the way the stands were and the fans are right on top of you. Yeah, the spit guard over the visiting team's penalty box.
Absolutely.
That was a fun place. So what was your favorite number to wear and why?
30. Just always wore it to today. Softball is what I've worn. 30s just was my thing. Started wearing it when I was in probably second year squirts, just stuck with me all the way through. And it was a goalie number, but now it's like my number for everything. Passwords, I put it somewhere in my passwords. Everything's got 30 in it. I don't make that sound.
No, it makes sense because I still use mine for that reason. And it was funny because mine was 30 when I started for obvious reasons, Belfour.
Yep.
Then I got to high school and it switched to 35 and I loved that number. But when I got to St. Mary's, Freddie Hennon had it first. And then Richie had it when Freddie graduated. So I wasn't getting 35. So I just went to the cabinet and got the biggest jersey they had in the cabinet. And it happened to be 39. So ever since then, I've just stuck with it.
It's a good number for Dominator. No, that's good. That's funny. Fred Hennon, I forgot. That's another good name for back there. Yeah, from Bill Murray.
Yeah.
That too. That's funny.
Freddie, he was an interesting fellow. Like I was talking to Nosey about it, and it was funny because he goes, Freddie was really good at the position, but it was almost as if he hated playing. Like,
good way to put it.
He was good. It just seemed like he didn't enjoy it. He didn't want to be out there. I mean, there were practices he just wouldn't show up to. Like, he was an odd duck, that's for sure.
That's what I've heard. Over the years.
Yeah, he was something else. So last question, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
Now today, study it, learn it, watch the games, watch college games, watch high school games, just study it and do it. And you got to put the work in. You can't just go to the rink and think you're going to be ready to games, in which some people you just have to. It's a hard with these days. We talk all the time here about, for kids to be good and put the time in. There's devices, there's everything else that takes distractions away, social media, all that stuff. And just, they'd have to put the time in. And that's what they have to put the time in, watch the film and not live it forever, but you need to put the extra work in and just showing up on game day. You think you're going to be special.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's true, not just for hockey, but any sport and life in general. You want to be good at school, you got to put the time in. You want to be good at work, you got to put the time in. You got to do the work. But so PT, I've taken up more than enough of your time.
No, there you are. Okay, you cut out.
Oh, sorry.
I'll do this again anytime. We'll catch up again and chat. That'd be good to see you. It'd be good to chat again at some point. This was a lot of fun.
It's been fun. We're going to have to grab some drinks together when you're up this way visiting your mom and dad, and I'll bring the whiskey with.
I absolutely will.
Well, thanks, bud.
Good. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, enjoy and stay safe out there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll chat soon, bro.